And to look at the implications of today's development, I'm joined in studio by Nabil Orina. He's a lawyer and International Criminal Court prosecutor. The decision by the appeal court, is this now done and dusted? Can the prosecutor appeal?
Thank you very much for having me. Just to state that I'm an international criminal law practitioner. On this matter, the case by the prosecutor in this particular case is still ongoing. We're still yet to hear from the trial chamber on whether they have a case to answer or not. And but this is a major ruling because it makes a determination on a very crucial issue that was before the court, whether or not recanted testimony can be admitted into evidence and it can be considered by the court. So it of course impacts on you know, whatever direction this case is taking, but we're yet to know more about it.
And Prosecutor Fatu Bensouda had earlier said that during her application that if not allowed to use the recanted evidence, that this would sufficiently weaken you know, her case. What does this mean? If she does not have sufficient evidence going forward, are we likely to see a situation similar to that of President Uhuru Kenyatta, with the case being thrown out altogether?
Of course, that's a possibility, because the reason why the prosecutor applied to the court to consider or to take to admit this kind of evidence is because she has admitted that her case is weak, and she thought that this would at least give an opportunity to the court to look at you know, the prior recorded testimonies that were recanted, to see whether there is any corroboration with the evidence that is on record. So it's really a very difficult position for her, because if the case was weak and this was the only thing she was really relying on to kind of revive it, then we're yet to see. I think we're about to see a similar situation like what happened in the President Uhuru case.
And African states, Nabil, have been known as accusing the ICC of unfairly targeting the continent. So this being seen as a major win for the African Union, for the African member states. What does this now signify, you know, in as far as relations between African states and the ICC?
This is also important for the African Union, because one of its concerns was on whether or not its voice is heard during the Assembly of State Parties deliberations. Remember that they filed amicus curiae submissions before the court, arguing that there were assurances from
amicus curiae meaning friends of the...
Yes. Arguing that because they were allowed...
Friends of the court?
Yes, friends of the court. They applied to be enjoined, and the appeals chamber agreed. So they filed submissions to say that, look, during the deliberations at the Assembly of State Parties, there were guarantees, there were assurances that this rule could not be applied. And we saw strongly recently, when they held the meeting of the AU, that there is now a suggested roadmap for withdrawal. But I think they will kind of take a step back, because now the court has shown that indeed you know, their voices have been taken into consideration, because this was a key issue of concern for them. So I think for them it's better to still remain within the courts and fight any injustice they feel while still there, because they are a strong bloc of over 30 countries, and they can at least make an impact if they feel that something is going wrong with the court.
Yeah, which brings me to the question, was it in the best interests of the ICC to make this ruling, then seeing that the African states are majority in as far as membership, ICC membership? Was this more of a political or emotive decision, if you like?
Well, the ICC is a court guided by the rule of law, and you know, looking at the arguments, and when we get to see the final judgment, the whole judgment, of course we will see the basis upon which the appeals chamber set aside the trial chamber's ruling. But again, you cannot divorce whatever international politics from international law in this particular case, because the Assembly of State Parties is the highest organ of the court. It's the one that gives mandate to the court. It's the one that forms the law upon which the court acts. It's the one that can amend the rules. So when there is this serious push by you know, one block of the Assembly of State Parties, then the court indirectly must listen to what they're saying.
But at the end of the day, the essence of this entire process was that the victims get justice. And then which brings in the question of whether or not this is a decision that has pleased the African Union, which is seen as, of course, being elite. Looking back at the victims, they're still crying for justice or accountability. Has the ICC been sufficient in giving them these answers?
The role of the courts, the ICC, should be, truth-finding, and, that's the intention of everyone, that at the end of the day we know the truth about what happened. And for the victims, I think this particular process has been very frustrating for them, because they're not about to know what exactly happened. And I think it's a chance for the ICC to reevaluate and see, because at the end of the day they must really deliver to the victims for them to have succeeded. The victims need to know who did it, not just that anybody must take responsibility. But if you end up with a process that does not have an answer to the question, then I think it's a frustrating process. Yes.
For your thoughts, Nabil Orina, thank you very much. And of course, we will continue to talk to him as and when the story develops.